Well, as far as the possibility for concrete proposals goes, then the UK, France, and Ukraine are reportedly working on a ceasefire plan to present to the US, as our London correspondent just mentioned. So for more on this, we're going to speak to Olena Prokopenko, senior fellow at the German Marshall Fund. Hi there, Olena. Thank you very much for joining us today. So this is, of course, not the first meeting between European leaders since the start of the war in Ukraine over 3 years ago now. So what do you think this summit can achieve that others in the past have failed to achieve?
Well, I believe that the recent meeting between President Zelensky and President Trump and Vice President Vance was obviously a disgraceful ambush of President Zelensky that made it clear to not only Ukraine but also Europe that the US might be abandoning not just Ukraine but the free world. This left Europe and Ukraine alarmed and made it clear that Europe may have even less time than it thought it had in order to secure Ukraine, to support Ukraine's defense effort, and also to step up its own defense capabilities. I believe that this summit is very much inspired by what happened there, and the sense of urgency is even greater than it was after the Munich Security Conference, which already was a very significant wake-up call. I think today it is very important to achieve utmost unity between the European member states, the UK, NATO, and it's really important to make sure that the actions are taken as fast as possible, and that the EU can also mediate between Ukraine and the US and bring Ukraine back into this negotiation.
It's clear, Olena, that, the White House is playing a very primordial role in negotiating what comes next for the war in Ukraine. But I think the Trump administration has been very clear in its animosity towards Volodymyr Zelensky, that those scenes in the White House being the climax, of course, of that long stretch of hostile comments. So how likely do you think the White House is to support anything that would involve security guarantees for Ukraine or for Europe at large, which is, of course, what these leaders are at least going to, in part, be pushing for today?
Well, I would say that the meeting at the White House, many consequences came out of it, but the two important ones are that we saw that the U.S. might be finalizing its shift towards Russia, unfortunately, in terms of the peace talks and the position that it's taking. And secondly, that the United States never worked on the specific guarantees for security of Ukraine. It became abundantly clear at the meeting in the White House that President Trump never thought that specific and robust security guarantees would be realistic. That's why he insisted on basically himself being the only security guarantee. He kept saying that Putin respects him and he would not invade, which Ukraine cannot accept. So regardless of that animosity, which is very unfortunate, but President Zelensky had a very difficult relationship history with Trump ever since 2019, and they've been able to overcome that multiple times. And I still believe that the end goal, the overarching goal of both Ukraine and the U.S. remains the same. It's achieving lasting peace, and the sooner the European partners are able to convey the stakes here to the White House, the more realistic these peace talks can be. I mean, the more realistic the actual peace is. Unfortunately, ceasefire doesn't seem to be possible anytime soon, and I believe that President Trump was becoming more and more clear about that. And once he realized that it's impossible on Ukraine's terms, he started to put the blame on Ukraine. And this is not the way to go. And I hope today's summit paves the way back to the White House for Ukraine and for Europe.
So we just have a few moments left, Elena. I do want to ask you, because Emmanuel Macron has said that he's ready to discuss the possibility of a future nuclear deterrent for Europe to achieve greater autonomy in its defense capabilities. I mean, you mentioned the possibility of a lasting peace there. That implies a lot of different actors. How much of a difference do you think a European nuclear deterrent would make? And do you think it would further escalate what's already a very dangerous situation?
Well, I think escalation management has never worked with Russia. We have seen this since 2014, and it didn't prevent Russia from reinvading Ukraine on a large scale in 2022 with this management of escalation. So I think the European leaders should be as decisive as possible, and this plan to share nuclear deterrence between the UK, France, and Germany, and reinforce each other's nuclear deterrence is a very important way to go. It's a strategy that needs to be taken on.
We'll see what comes out of this summit then. In the meantime, Olena Prokopenko, thank you so very much for your time today.
Thank you.